Hello, my friends, and happy new year. This episode is one I have been slowly gathering, not because I needed time to write it, but it was still showing itself to me. It was still helping me understand the threads that pulled together over this past year so that I could share them with you and feel into the guidance and find my path forward. 2025 wasn't simply a year, it was a descent and a return and the beginnings of a foundation. And now, as we cross into 2026, I see how every thread was preparing me for this moment, for this shift, for this new way of building and being and belonging. So, today I want to take you through that journey because I know a lot of you have been walking the endings this year too. So, we're going to look at it not as a highlight reel, but as an honest and reverent reflection of what really took place for me to come home to myself. Many people will tell you how the year just flew by, and perhaps there were times that felt sped up. But if I think of December 2024, it feels like lifetimes ago. I have started measuring time by expansion instead of sunsets, and this one felt jam packed. And fortunately, it was also jam packed with travel, which makes my heart sing. So when I look at the beginning of 2025, the tone was pretty unmistakable. It was descending. Peru called me downward into the deep interior of myself, into the places that I had bypassed or outgrown. It took me into the layers that could no longer come with me and into the truth that I needed to recalibrate myself in order to fully hold. It was the unraveling and the purification and the stripping away of old scaffolding. Peru taught me that you cannot build a new structure on top of old agreements, and something had to be released before anything new could rise. We were in the year of the nine and the snake, and I know many of you walk this too, the collapsing of what could not move forward with you. And a lot of times that walk is uncomfortable. And so I hope you have had the opportunity to reflect back and be like, I see why that happened. I couldn't take that with me. And so Peru did what Peru does, or Mother Aya did what Mother Aya does. She extracted what wasn't mine, what wasn't true, what wasn't meant for the woman I'm becoming. I received guidance and direction that took months to unpack. It's similar to when I am going somewhere and someone tells me to go north. Thank you. That is very clear direction. However, I do not hold the orientation for that to be helpful. That's what I came home with. I returned with direction and no orientation, a desire to follow the path with no map. And I tried to effort my way to clarity and mucked up the path along the way until I finally followed the guidance to slow down and to surrender and to acknowledge that if I remain still, the sun will at some point rise, and that rising will provide my orientation. In that stillness, Mary Magdalene began coming through very clearly. And the invitation for me was very different. It was not, here is my message, share it with all. It was, receive this message and live it. The transmissions that I received, both that I have shared and that I have unshared at this point, have asked not to be broadcast, but to allow them first to change me, to allow them not to be spoken, but to be a lived transmission. So, hours at a time, deep in reflection of discovering how her story has shown up in mine, I worked hard to do this work. My family and I also got to enjoy spring break in Switzerland. And over the summer, we went to Portugal and Spain, where we experienced a different pace and a different rhythm. And I mention these because a lot of times we forget our joy is as sacred as a spiritual retreat. When you look back at your year and you think of your breakthroughs, also think of your joy and of your wonder and of your excitement, your thrill, those trips, those moments, those meals, those relationships, they matter too. Of course, I also got to walk with Lilith, who came in more like a storm and turned my house upside down. But with months of settling, that upheaval was incredibly worth it. I started showing up fully in my own home, and now my daughter has conversations with me about past life trauma that is showing up in someone she knows and how it could be healed and why they resist and what my role would be to help. And occasionally there are comments about my hoodoo voodoo work. But when I started allowing myself to be seen in my home, they started seeing me. And now I don't feel like a guest here. Mark, bless his heart, has walked his own initiation with Lilith, or perhaps me and my grenades, and with a heart attack. He has been on a wild ride, and his growth and his expansion have been at the level of his initiation. He would even claim that. Zosha said the other day when we were talking about healing and how healing is done with soul sovereignty. May my healing never bypass what the soul is choosing to grow through. And sometimes that looks like suffering. But she can see the transformation that Mark has had over the past few months in slowing down and calming down and giving up alcohol, at least for now. His heart attack and the grenade that she doesn't know about served him very well. And those conversations, being able to have depth and connection with my kids on a language in my own tongue, oh, that serves me very well too. So let's keep traveling. If Peru was the descent, Avalon was the ascent. Peru was the unraveling, and Avalon was the remembering, putting the pieces back together, but not into something new, into something ancient. Avalon didn't give me new teachings. She returned the ones that were already in my bones. She didn't show me a new identity. She showed me the one that I had slowly dimmed to remain palatable or relatable or acceptable. Avalon rethreaded me, not into a new fabric, but into the original weave, the lineage, the feminine knowing, the quiet authority of the land. It didn't elevate me, it recognized me. And in that recognition, I remembered parts of myself I had been carrying and not yet embodying. Avalon was that homecoming, not to a path, but to myself. As the year closed and I found the stillness and then the urge to begin the work, the revelation to construction. November, I integrated, and December brought so much forward shifts and changes and clarity. The clarity that I chased arrived in that space. 2025 was a gathering year, a gathering of tools and of threads and gathering of remembrance. And now it has become clear that 2026 is the building year. I'm laying stone now, not metaphorical stone, but energetic stone and structural stone and legacy stone. And this is the moment where the spiral turns, where the descent and the return become a foundation. But before the build could begin, another layer surfaced. One I thought I had already released, but I had not. God bless the patterns that returned for us to get the next layer. In December, I sat with the energy of the year and I recorded the podcast about holidays and earning. And what I saw was something unexpected. Even after Peru extracted, even after Avalon rethreaded, I was still carrying a subtle and powerful pattern that I had removed from my holidays but still lived in my work. The belief that I must earn love through doing, the belief that I must earn impact through output, earn belonging through effort. I did that episode on holidays and presents, which meant the theme revisited me as I wrote it, as I recorded it, as I edited it. And for the first time, I saw this new layer. At the end of last year, I was in Derek's business group, and the space and the rhythm of the group was more posting, more content, more visibility, more effort, more output, more hustle. And in doing so, you put so much out into the universe that it has no choice but to respond, to right that balance. The universe will respond. And I absorbed that frequency, not because it was true, but because at that time, I didn't yet trust that my presence was enough. Without realizing it, I carried that vibration into and through 2025. Around April, I felt a disconnect and I knew that I was called inward and not outward. And I left the group, but not before that energy had infiltrated. And this is not about the group or the program. This was my work. It was my pattern. And I have walked through that same pattern in different clothes with Mark and untangling my worth and my work and my impact from the business model ROI. And truly, I thought that through my work with him that I had really addressed what was out there. But in this final layer in December, and I say final as if I know, there might be 7 more layers to peel. But I saw that it wasn't just my energy that this was tied to, this efforting, but it was tied to my offerings. It was in my work. It was in the keeper's garden, into how I structure my offerings, into how I assess my worth in service. And it's not in loud ways, but it is in subtle and persistent ways. And those ways needed to be seen before they could be released, before I could recognize and restructure. This is where a much older thread reemerged. Years ago, in one of my first Akashic record openings, I received a message and I didn't know how to hold it. Remember who you are. And at the time, I completely misunderstood it. My mind translated it into identity. Who am I supposed to be? What is my role? What is my spirit name or my purpose? Or who have I been before? So I sought definition and labels and persona. I looked into past lives of who I may have been. When that didn't land, I did the opposite. I dissolved into the universal, into the conceptual, trying to become so unidentified that nothing personal remained, accepting only that we are all on a path to remember who we are. And neither of those paths felt complete. And without realizing it, the message had set dormant, waiting for the moment I would finally be ready to hear it clearly. And that moment was in Avalon. Avalon didn't explain the message. She embodied it. Because when the land met me, when the lineage recognized me, when the remembering flooded through, I finally understood. Remember who you are was never a demand to become more. It was an invitation to stop becoming less, to stop dimming, to stop performing, to stop hiding behind palatable versions of myself, to stop confusing humility with erasure, to stop offering half truths so others could stay comfortable. Remembering who I am didn't make me bigger, it made me more honest. So in December, these two storylines collided. The old message, remember who you are, and the old distortion, prove yourself through more, more, more. And I could suddenly see why remembering who you are had seemed so confusing years ago. Because you cannot remember who you are through the lens of performance. You cannot hear truth when you're trying to earn it. You cannot embody your essence when you are living from an identity that is built on proving. The extraction of Peru and the rethreading of Avalon and the honesty of December all converged into a single realization. I am done. I am done earning what is already mine. I am done proving. I am done performing. I am done contorting myself into more. So 2026 is built on completely different ground. Months ago, I got that nudge to go to the Robin Wall Kimmerer lecture, and I didn't know what it held for me, but I knew something was there. And after her lecture at the podium, she sat in the chair and she was responding to questions. The student's question was about, why did you begin storytelling, transforming science into these stories that are in big books and bookstores for everyone? And her response got me. She told that her science papers, or science papers in general, actually, scientific papers, are typically read by 30 people. And the urgency that she feels of communicating this earth wisdom, indigenous wisdom to people, to bring us into right relation with nature and with Mother Earth, she felt such urgency that 30 people reading her work was not going to do the trick. And this knowing washed over me, and I understood. I am grateful for this podcast, and I am grateful for my Patreon. It is the space that I get to speak science. Not science, y'all. I don't know anything about science, but I get to speak in the language to people who can receive it. It is undiluted medicine because I can be here in fullness with you. But there is an urgency, and I shouldn't really say urgency, but there is a calling that I feel that there is a story to be told as well. What I have found in this past year is I was so focused on output and making sure I do enough for people and show up in all of these spaces and hold what is not mine to hold, that I didn't create that gap for the unseen work that I know that I'm called to do. Last year, I did not give myself permission to put myself into work that others don't see right now, for fear that if I am not putting myself out there, that those who are meant to walk with me wouldn't find me. But now I truly trust that what I do with full presence, quality and not quantity, will indeed call in my tribe without a ton of output, without trying to keep up with metrics and algorithms. This is what I know in my bones is 2026 is not the year of more. It is the year of coherence. It is the year of right relation. It is the year of true presence, of original resonance, of unmasked embodiment, of required reciprocity. It is the year where my unseen work becomes my priority and not my leftover. It is the year where my offerings become clearer, not larger. It is the year I build the actual architecture of what I came here to do. From truth, not effort. From remembrance, not urgency. And from essence, not performance. This year is not about adding. It is about aligning, not about becoming. It's about remembering, not about doing more, but doing true. The foundation is here and the clarity is here. And now the house can finally be built. The deeper work I am here to do, I know requires more presence and more inner spaciousness and more alignment. And to honor that, my offerings are shifting into a new rhythm that serves both my energy and the people that are truly ready to walk this path. So, nearly every Sunday, I'll say every Sunday, but nearly every Sunday, I will host a Sunday coherent circle. It is a weekly energetic attunement to begin the week aligned. It is similar to the Together for 10 healing circle, if you ever attended that. But instead of holding a group intention, we are going to each bring our own intention into the field. And so we will share this space in a meditation space for 15 minutes. It is free to all, and the link will be posted as a public post on my Patreon. I'm also going to host a monthly soul circle. It is free, though registration is required. We will meet the first Sunday morning of the month to introduce a theme, kind of walk through it and unpack it together. And then we will just have weekly touch point posts in a shared group so that we can walk the remembrance together. It doesn't ask a lot of you. It is a one meeting and then weekly follow-ups to connect with others who are also choosing to bring this kind of awareness to a theme for the month. So the only place that I will be offering personalized intuitive guidance outside of one-on-one sessions are the altar hours that I will hold bi-weekly in the Patreon for the sanctuary. Scaling back allows me to hold true depths for those who have chosen that deeper walk with me. As for one-on-one sessions, I will continue to offer 30-minute field coherence sessions for nervous system resets and soul stream journeys for those who would like personalized intuitive guidance. And I am going to do better about having consistent openings. So that is how I'm shifting the spaces I show up in to make sure I can do it with all of me and then have enough to really pour into what I'm called to do this season. So that's it. That is how I wrapped it up with big trips and near divorce. And, things are wild when you have two teens and a preteen, and motherhood was the easiest path of the year. But bless these kids of mine, they truly are amazing. So I want to offer an invitation for you and hoping if you have not reflected yet, that you do so, but then you begin to look forward. And as we enter this new year together, let me ask you this. Where have you dimmed? Where have you diluted your knowing? Where have you performed for love that was already yours? Where have you mistaken humility for hiding? Where have you held back the truest parts of yourself? May this year be the one you remember who you are, softly and powerfully and without apology, without performance and without shrinking. May this be the year you step into your truth, not as a role, but as a return. Welcome to 2026, my loves. This year of coherence and the year of right relation and the year of remembrance, lived, embodied, and unhidden. And thank you for walking this path with me. Have a great week.